You need to learn this circuit, okay? If there's one single circuit that you learn, make it this one, because it applies to essentially any modern electronic device. Modern electronic devices like laptops and consoles have lots of different chips that have different voltage requirements. You can't just shove 20 volts into the CPU and call it a day. This thing needs a lot lower voltage. So somewhere along the line in the laptop, those voltages are going to get turned into smaller ones. And being able to trace how those voltages get turned into smaller ones is 100% crucial to understand where to start on a motherboard that is faulty. Imagine trying to solve a maze and you don't understand the concept of a corner. This is kind of like trying to fix a motherboard without understanding the circuit. You might just wander around randomly and end up solving the maze, but it's going to take you forever, and you probably should learn how corners work. We're not going to be talking about LDOs and boost converters and things today, but just know there are other ways that voltages get turned from one voltage into another. So let's begin our journey by plugging in our 20 volts to the laptop, and we are going to check if we have 20 volts. You can see my multimeter on the top left, the blue numbers. Do we have 20 volts? Yes, we do have 20 volts. And this is our main power rail going into the rest of the laptop to power essentially everything else ultimately. So for example, we have a battery here which needs to be charged. Great example of a lower voltage that we need, but not too much lower. So in this case, if we check the voltage on the battery connector, we're getting 17 volts. And I'll tell you right now, this is coming from this inductor here. You can see on the top left, we get 17 volts. So I'm going to show you right now a simple circuit that is being used to turn our 20 volts into our 17 volts. Before we check out the circuit, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, PCBWay. PCBWay offers high quality PCB fabrication as well as CNC and 3D printing services. They make it really easy to get a quote for your PCBs if you just go here to PCB Instant Quote and then upload your Gerber files from here. Once uploaded, you can change a bunch of settings like the materials used, the thickness of the PCB, as well as solder mask and silkscreen colors. And you can see in this case, 5 PCBs is only $5 plus shipping. And if you're new to PCBWay, you can sign up at the link in the description and you will get a $5 coupon on your first order. So thank you to PCBWay for sponsoring this video, and let's get back into it. All right, so forgive my drawing abilities, but we're going to be turning 20 volts into 17 volts using MOSFETs. So MOSFETs are found all over the motherboard and they're used for all kinds of different things. But one of the main use cases is to switch voltage rails really, really fast. So we could talk forever about MOSFETs alone and the nuances of them and how they work. We won't get into that in this video. For all intents and purposes, you can think of this as an electrically controlled switch. So the 20 volts won't be able to get through to the other side of this MOSFET until a voltage is applied to the gate here, which is sort of the electrically controlled switch part. So effectively, these are not going to conduct until they are told to by something over here, right? So we actually have a chip over here, which is connected to both of these two gates of these MOSFETs. So what this is going to be doing is it's going to be switching on and off this high-side MOSFET hundreds of thousands to millions of times per second. So this is called the high-side MOSFET because it's connected to our 20 volts. This is called the low-side MOSFET because it's connected to our 0 volts or ground. So it's going to be pulsing this on and off, but it's not going to be doing it randomly. It's going to do it at a very specific rate so that we can get our 17 volts on average. So 17 volts, which is our desired output, is going to be exactly 85% of our 20 volts up here. So if we turn this 20 volts on 85% of the time, we should get an average of 17 volts over here. So let's make a little graph here. And we say every, fixed interval, whatever this interval is, this is going to be time, right? And then this is going to be voltage over here. Here's our 20 volts. Here's 0 volts. We want this 20 volts here to be on 85% of the time. And then 15% of the time, we're going to turn it off. And then again, at the next interval, we're going to turn it on 85% of the time, and then 15% of the time off, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to do this over and over and over again. And if we average out the voltage over time, we're going to be getting our 17 volts. So obviously, we're not done yet because we want a smooth 17 volts. But before we move on, this whole thing here is called pulse width modulation. And this over here is our PWM or pulse width modulation chip. So this is what is controlling the pulses on the gates of the MOSFETs and is therefore controlling how much voltage on average we're getting on this side. So in this case, we are on 85% of the time. So our duty cycle ends up being 85%. So let's take a quick pause here and check our laptop and see if we can figure out where this PWM is and where these two MOSFETs are in order to turn our 20 volts into our 17 volts for the battery. So here is our board view and our schematic. And on the board view here, you can see this is our battery connector at the bottom of the PCB. Here are our positive pins going to this fuse here. So we can check for, let's say, the BAT plus rail. So let's search for this net here. And this is going to bring us to our battery connector. But we actually have 3 matches here. So let's press N to go to the next match. We also have whatever this is here. And then we finally have this here, which is looking a little bit more like what we're looking for. So if we follow this way, you can see something is starting to look a little familiar, hopefully. We have our 2 MOSFETs here being controlled by the same chip. So you can ignore this other MOSFET here for a second. I'll explain why this is here later. So we have the high-side MOSFET here, which is connected to our 20 volts, our V in over here. Then our low-side MOSFET is connected to ground. And these are both controlled at their gates by the same chip over here. And this is our pulse width modulator. In this case, it is our BQ chip. This is the charger chip for the laptop. And this is one of the responsibilities of the BQ chip, is to control these MOSFETs so that we get an appropriate charging voltage on our battery connector. So cool, we found the part of the schematic that we're interested in. So I've got my oscilloscope up here waiting for a signal on the probes. I want to probe on the gate of the high-side MOSFETs here to see our high-side duty cycle that is provided by the BQ chip. So I'm just going to probe the gate on the top of this upper MOSFET here. All right, let's go ahead and probe carefully and let's see what we ended up getting. There we go. We got a little signal there. So let's move over a little bit and zoom into this thing. And we can actually see, as noisy as it is here, we can see that 85% of the time it's on, and then the 15% of the time that it's off. But this is only half of the story, right? Because we don't want pulsed 20 volts over here. We want a smooth 17 volts. And the way we do this is using an inductor. So let's draw an inductor here, and our inductor is going to be connected to our battery. So we have a few other things going on, but let's just focus on this first. So the reason that we use an inductor here is because inductors do not like changes in current. And we are doing just that here. We are changing the current quite significantly, and this does not like that. This likes to keep shoving current through once it gets going. It takes a bit of time for it to sort of spin up. So think of it like a water wheel. A lot of people like to talk about inductors like water wheels because they take a bit of effort to get started, but once they get going, they have momentum. So because the inductor does not like changes in current, and we are changing current quite rapidly here between 0 and 20 volts, it's going to kind of smooth this out, for lack of a better word. It's more nuanced than that, but you can think about it as sort of like resisting this change and giving us effectively a smoother, more averaged out 17 volts. But we have a bit of a problem here as it is, because when the high-side MOSFET is conducting, we are going to get a slow rise in current on the inductor, and our current path looks something like this. It's going through our high-side MOSFET, through the inductor, over to our battery or our load or whatever it is that we're powering, and then ultimately it goes to ground, right? And here is a complete current path, which is great. But when we turn it off, we no longer have a current path from here, but the inductor wants to keep the momentum going. It's not just going to stop when we stop conducting here. It's going to do everything in its power to maintain current flow until it can sort of slow down and stop. And this is going to cause all kinds of problems for the components in and around the area here. So in order to allow the inductor to maintain a current path during these off cycles, we are going to turn this low side MOSFET on. And if you notice, when we turn this on, this now gives our inductor a current path to maintain the flow of current into the battery in this case, or into the load. So that's exactly what this pulse width modulator is going to do. It's going to turn it on during the times that the high side MOSFET is off in order to maintain a current path for the inductor. And obviously it's only going to do that 15% of the time. So it's going to look something like this instead of like this. Obviously these here are not to scale, so it's going to be a lot more like this kind of thing here. So now let's check the low side MOSFET here. So that's going to be this guy, and here's our gate. So it's going to be the bottom pin. So we're going to grab this guy right here. All right, here's our low side MOSFET here, which lines up with what we would expect, right? It's only on about 15% of the time. So we get little bumps every once in a while. Otherwise, it's just going to stay off. So now that we have our current path, the inductor is able to do its thing, and it's going to slow down slowly. And then we're going to kind of repeat the process over and over. And we're going to get sort of a more smoothed out current than we are going to get with our square wave here. Now our load generally wants to see still even a smoother 17 volts than this current waveform we have here. So what we're going to do is add some capacitors over here. And you're going to see this is very common on the output of buck regulators. You're going to have caps. And then same goes for over here. We're going to have some capacitors because of all of the noise that gets generated from all this switching on this main power rail. So you'll see plenty of capacitors here on the input as well as the output. So we can see our two MOSFETs here, and then our inductor. We have the capacitors over here on the output, and then we have a bunch of capacitors here on the input of the high-side MOSFET, and then we have the gates connected to our pulse width modulator chip over here, or our BQ chip in this case. We have actually two high-side MOSFETs. They're doing the exact same thing. So these are just sort of like in parallel with each other. And the reason for this is because the duty cycle for the high-side MOSFETs is 85% of the time on. So the high-side MOSFET is going to have to conduct a lot more often in this particular buck regulator than the low-side MOSFET. The low-side MOSFET is going to do a lot more work in a buck regulator where you're taking the voltage down significantly. For example, if you're going to go from 20 volts to 1 volt, then your low-side MOSFETs are going to be doing a lot more of the heavy lifting because they're going to be conducting longer than the high-side MOSFETs. So all that to say is you're going to find these circuits all over the motherboard. All you have to look for is two MOSFETs and an inductor. There you go. There's a VRM right here. You can see plenty of capacitors on the input side. And then there's going to be a capacitor here on the output side. And then we probably have a chip nearby that's controlling the gates of these MOSFETs, which I believe is going to be this over here. We have another two MOSFETs here and an inductor. This is actually the 3.3 volt always rail and the 5 volt always on rail. And both of these VRMs are actually controlled, I believe, by this IC over here. This is the pulse width modulator for these two VRMs. And bear in mind, you're not always going to see two separate MOSFETs. Sometimes you're going to have a dual MOSFET chip. So this actually has two MOSFETs inside of it, and it's acting as both the high side and the low side MOSFETs. And it's easy to spot dual MOSFETs on the schematic because you'll see two MOSFETs sort of shoved together into one chip like this. And it looks very, very familiar, hopefully. We've got our inductor, we've got our output capacitors, we have some sort of chip controlling both the high side and the low side. And then we have our input voltage here with plenty of capacitors. So it's the same exact structure, it just slightly different. And in this case, we actually have two phases here. And this is going to be for the VRAM, I believe. So we have another dual MOSFET here and an inductor. And they're going to be slightly out of phase of each other in order to work together to provide a smooth current to the VRAM chips over here next to the GPU. And then up here, I don't even have to use a scope for this. You'll see plenty of dual MOSFETs here for the GPU and the inductors, and we have some other phases here for the CPU. So hopefully you can see that this is a circuit that you really need to get comfortable with and familiar with because it's going to be found all over the place and there's all kinds of problems that happen with these things. I'm not going to get into every single way that these things can fail because they can fail in all kinds of fun ways. I'm hoping you can see this video as more of a tool to help you understand what you're dealing with so that you can make better decisions about how to approach your diagnostics versus just, blindly pulling components and replacing things that get hot on the thermal camera. I promise you, as soon as you start to recognize these buck regulators across a motherboard, you're going to be in much better shape to understand where to go from there. So if you guys like this video and you want to see a follow-up video talking about sort of how these things oftentimes fail and how we can test each of the components in the buck regulator to make sure it is functional. If you're interested in that, please let me know in the comments. And remember, if you are learning, go fix something. Stop watching my videos and go fix something. Go find something to fix and find all the VRMs. Because at the end of the day, understanding is one thing, but applying it is really satisfying. And that's what's going to help you learn the most. As always, I appreciate you guys for watching and I will see you in the next video. Peace.